What's up, guys? This is Tom, speaking for AnyLow, a channel where we analyze interesting topics like the one we'll discuss in this video right here. But before we get into it, if you could smash that like button and sub, that would be awesome. Alright, so our writer says, let's all remember the 90s. If you were alive then, you probably hung out with friends pretty frequently. There were more likable fashion trends that didn't make the people wearing them look so high maintenance. And there were comforting, social-minded people that would have a real conversation with you rather than being sucked into their phones all day. Not to mention life was more affordable. From rent and gas prices to food, everything was cheaper. Let's zoom into the 2000s. It seems like there had to be a party every weekend. There were good shows and cartoons that were more likable than the ones on now, and you had better friends that were still more likely to follow through with plans that you guys made. So what happened to these great times? Social media sure as hell happened. Since the invention of the smartphone in 2007, Instagram in 2011, Twitter, Snapchat, and other streaming services along the way, things haven't ever felt the same. Social media, our beloved smartphones, and multiple streaming services have ruined our abilities to communicate and experience greater opportunities over the years. Our attention is constantly taken up by these stupid videos and stale, uninteresting pictures rather than awesome real-life experiences. And because of this, everybody seems out of it. People now give the impression that life is a chore rather than something to look forward to. And so I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but people are having less fun. No more natural social interactions. You probably haven't been to a good party in forever. And there are these very weird, artificial, even forms of communication, like FaceTiming your friends rather than actually going to hang out with them, or sending your best bud a meme that isn't even that funny instead of actually seeing what he's up to. The internet has scared us into believing that it's better to stay inside and be stagnant all day rather than doing things in real life. And if your life isn't like this, and you're not dealing with these problems in this generation, which I doubt is true, then fine, this video isn't for you. This video is for the people who know what I'm talking about. Studies have shown that since 2006, opioid use is on the rise. Suicide is on the rise. Virginity is on the rise. And pretty much everything that shouldn't naturally be on the rise is on the rise. And I believe it's because of the invention and constant use of technological devices. We move around with these daily problems, but no one ever says anything because they don't want to be out of line for saying anything, or they don't know what they would do if all of a sudden these problems ever just stopped. But let me tell you that this isn't a healthy way to live. This has to change for each and every one of us, for our own good. Don't get me wrong. The development of technology has brought many great things, and I'm not disappointed with those things at all. After all, you wouldn't be watching this video if it wasn't for the internet. But what I am disappointed with is when technology takes away our greatest natural pleasures and replaces them with more dull, artificial forms of pleasure. Social media feeds on your ability to respond and keep searching for more. So don't respond. You know what to do. If you feel like I do, let's do what we do best when we were truly in an unfavorable situation. Not show up. Let's not show up to Netflix shows that give off false expectations for you. Don't show up to watching the YouTubers that live the lives that you could be living. Don't show up to the toxic radio stations that you only listen to because it's the only music you can listen to at the moment. And on Instagram, break the unverbal contract that you've signed with your followers that you'll always try to look cooler than one another. You know what I'm talking about. These toxic relationships make us stray further apart from one another and make us rely on using the internet even more. If you feel like how I feel, let's take a stand and turn back time. One by one, little by little, we can change how this generation lives. And so that's all our writer had to say. So here's what I think. Number one, I think every generation looks back to the old times, the good old days. I know my parents did it. I would hear stories about the 60s, 70s, 80s even. For me, though, I was a child of the 90s. So when our writer starts talking about the 90s and asking us to remember them, I remember them pretty well. I was pretty young. I remember watching things like VH1, Pop Up Video. That was one of my favorite shows. It was fun. You could watch the music videos. I certainly remember some of the clothing trends. I remember wearing pairs of Jinko jeans, which were huge baggy jeans that all the skater kids wore. I remember movies like the original Ninja Turtles. I remember all that stuff, and it was really, really cool. Even childhood TV shows like Are You Afraid of the Dark? And there was a game show called Legends of the Hidden Temple that I thought was really cool and I wanted to be on one day. I think they've actually made a remake now. But I do remember things being more affordable. And something that I have thought about is that nowadays everybody does have their hands in your pocket. I mean, in the 80s and 90s, there weren't cell phones, so there wasn't a cell phone bill. Sure, you had a landline, but that cell phone bill is way more expensive than that landline ever was. And then you're paying for extra data. You have apps that you've downloaded that you've subscribed to. You have all these kinds of things that you have subscriptions to, like those streaming services. It used to be cheaper to have Netflix than cable, but now you've got Netflix, you've got Hulu, you might be paying for YouTube, you might be paying for other streaming services too, not to mention music streaming services, and everybody has an option for you to pay automatically. That's a little scary when you think about it. All these people taking 10, 15, 20. Some of these TV subscriptions are like $40 or $50 just so you don't have ads. And again, more and more of our money is being devoted to these streaming things, and that money is just coming out automatically for a lot of us. It's kind of crazy to think about what else we're letting our money go to. I think the 2000s, they bring that up. There were a lot of good TV shows. I remember in the late 90s and 2000s, Friends was a great show that I used to watch. And you look at it nowadays, if any of these characters had a cell phone, none of their predicaments would ever happen, right? But when our writer really starts talking about the detriment that social media and the internet has caused, some of it's really kind of true. I think they go a little overboard in how extreme they take it. But when you think about what we've become as a society, I think we've become very much a microwave society in that we want it now. We want information now. We want to laugh now. We want to know what our friends are doing now without having to really interact with them. And in that sense, I agree with our writer. Now the writer listed out some studies that I'm not really sure about. I would love them to source some things, like the opioid use is on the rise. I've heard that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Suicide is on the rise. I've heard that too. So I've actually seen that in my local community. So I know that's real. But they mentioned that virginity's on the rise. I'm not sure where they're going with that. There's a lot of people out there with more conservative values or more traditional values that wouldn't necessarily see that as a bad thing. So throwing that in there with suicide and opioid use is really problematic for me, and the way they just lumped that in there without any other context. There could be a lot of factors at play other than just technology and the fact that people are maybe inside more. Now, I will say that sometimes I look at some of these YouTube channels and it makes me cringe that this person that's doing really dumb stuff, jumping off buildings or running around or playing pranks on people or just talking about other shows and getting their reactions, or some of them, they're just opening toys and playing with toys, grown adults, and they're making money. They're making a living doing this. Some of that makes me a little mad just because I wish I did it. So I'm a little jealous from that standpoint. But, I do think that there is something really true about social media envy or jealousy that you have, because most people really do just put what they want you to see on social media. And a lot of people, when you look at your friends on social media, you're only seeing the best parts of their lives. And before you know it, you're looking at your 500, 600 friends on Facebook, and you're seeing 500, 600 of the best moments of everyone's lives. When you look at your own life that you've got every bit of knowledge of, it pales in comparison to the highlight reels of other people's lives. So that's a real thing. I think that probably does tie into depression rates. I don't have those statistics in front of me, but with the suicide rates that the writer mentioned and things like that, I can definitely see how that's a problem. So while I think our writer really maybe goes to the extreme and gets a little childish in the way they write without backing it up with actual tangible evidence, I don't think they're way off base. I really kind of agree with the general thought behind it. I don't know. So that's all for this video. But if this one gets enough views, Anylo will continue to make videos as a channel, and we'll see where it goes from there. Thanks guys for watching, and make sure to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and comment how you feel about this topic. Has the internet been creating a toxic environment for you? Comment down below and let us know.